my impersonation in 11 seconds flat, before your very eyes, of Her Royal Highness, Princess Margaret!
She was the Queen's sister, but she did things which nobody else in the royal family had done. What people object to is 1 minute she's being very grand and expecting people to curtsy, and the next she's in black glove on a motorbike.
Since the age of 17, I've been misreported and misrepresented. She blazed a trail by marrying a photographer. Everyone said this is extraordinary. It's so unsuitable.
She was very modern, and she wanted to be out there and know what life was about.
The country around the royal family is beginning to change, but they're not changing. And at some point she decides, I want out. I want to get out of the cage.
Princess Margaret said if there's a good princess, there has to be a bad one. And that was her role in life, to be the bad one.
But she was a trailblazer, and she was a little bit of a rebel. She wanted to have that life, but she also wanted to have a normal life.
On the one hand, she lived a life of extraordinary privilege. But in the end, Margaret became a casualty of the system.
This was my first biography. And I said, if we start, obviously, let's do it chronologically. And she said, oh, look, don't go into all that business of childhood. And don't bother saying there was a storm on the night of my birth. Make a note to self. Didn't be difficult, this one.
When she did appear, the Queen Mother wrote, "The daughter number 2 has got large blue eyes and a will of iron, which is all the equipment that a lady needs, and as long as she can disguise her will and use her eyes, then all will be well." The big changing point in all their lives came in 1936 when Edward VIII abdicated to marry Mrs. Simpson.
The British Empire faces an extraordinary crisis amid ideas of a king sacrificing his throne for romance. Edward says she makes him happy.
Absolutely nobody thought he was going to do that, and indeed the Duke of York, father of Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret, had no idea that he was likely to be propelled onto the throne until really about 3 weeks before it happened.
Albert, Frederick, Arthur, George is now become George VI.
They then moved very swiftly out of 145 Piccadilly into Buckingham Palace, and they had to sort of take over very fast.
At her birth, she was 4th in line to the throne. Then, when her father took over, she went from 4th to 2nd in line to the throne very, very quickly. So her life, in that way, peaked aged 6, which is kind of rare for a human being.
When your father entered the throne, as His Majesty King George VI, there must have been a sudden and confusing change in lifestyle for a little girl of 6.
Yes, it was very surprising. My first impression was of having to leave home and go to Buckingham Palace, which we didn't know very well, and battling through these enormous, loving crowds that were surrounding my father and mother. I think they were greatly relieved to have somebody who they could depend on again.
Yes. And Buckingham Palace itself must be a very daunting place from its sheer size.
Well, no. Buckingham Palace is a very cosy house.
When Princess Margaret and the Queen were children, their father was the King Emperor of half the world. I mean, half the world was pink. And they were very, very grand.
I think she loved being royal, and I think she wanted people to be reminded of that and not to treat her like an ordinary person. Once she put me in my place. I said to her, "Oh, how is your father?" And it was a pause, and she said, "Are you talking about the king?" I said, "Yes." I was sorry, ma'am. How is the king? His Majesty or something.
Well, I knew Princess Margaret when I was very, very small, because my father was a great friend of the king. I grew up at Holcombe. And because Holcombe is so near Sandringham, it's only 8 miles away, we used to meet on the beach and go swimming together. Well, she's great fun, Princess Margaret. She's quite naughty. The Queen was always saying, Margaret, don't do that, or you shouldn't do that, and Anne, what are you doing? And then we used to scurry off with sort of screams of laughter and go and hide somewhere.
You joined your sister in lessons by a governess. Did you miss the company of other children? Did you feel that you were being left out of a great deal of companionship?
Well, no, because my sister and I were very close, although she's nearly 5 years older than me. We never did lessons together. We always did lessons separately.
And later, did you study constitutional history?
No, I didn't. My sister did.
She always said I was never educated as well